What's up, guys? Welcome back. In this video, I am starting on a project that I never thought I would ever be involved in. My good friend Kevin Furness, who's a tattoo artist in Las Vegas, Nevada, is on his second cross-country trip doing tattoo guest spots at different tattoo shops all over the country in his Tesla Model 3. It's a performance edition. It's a pretty wild car if you've never been in one of these cars. Acceleration and lots of other performance goods on these cars are pretty insane. I'm not a full-blown EV guy. I do enjoy and can appreciate styling and technology and all that. So being in this car is quite a treat from a standstill when you accelerate. We're working with bag riders and we're going to be bagging this Tesla 3. I've never bagged a Tesla before, but luckily I've never actually bagged a car that had a bolt-in kit available for it. So that should make things way easier. Every car I've ever bagged has been something that you needed to fabricate in one way or another, whether or not that was simple or more complicated. But this is a bolt-in kit. We are using the Bag Riders Super Low kit, which is a single bellow bag bolt-in kit for this car. It's Bag Riders' new series that they have developed themselves. And I'm super excited to actually be utilizing one of those kits because there's only a few platforms of cars that they have kits out available for at the moment. Getting the first Super Bowl box open. These are yours, sir.
Thank you.
It's packaged nicely, nice foam. Oh, cool. Yeah, this is all like pre-cut. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, they definitely were methodical on how to package everything nice and tidy and visually pleasing. All right, so here are the fronts. These are the rears. Also single bellow bags, which, as I've mentioned before, I like single bellow bags and the way they ride, as do the Bag Riders guys. That's why they went with a single bellow, not a dual bellow or a sleeve bag or anything like that. The Corvair is on single bellow bags all around, and that car rides amazing at low ride height. Even at high ride heights, it rides well. So here's basically everything we're going to be using. We've got all the hardware, the Tesla Model 3 all-wheel drive Bag Riders Super Low kit, management. We're using the Airlift Performance 3P system. As you guys know, this is a system that I've used almost exclusively in probably 10 of my own personal projects, but I'm familiar with this setup. Airlift has done a great job with this management. The Corvair, as I've mentioned many times, is still on a pre-production 3P manifold from 2015. No issues whatsoever. The system's been great. I know there are a lot of other great systems out there, but I just know this one well. And so Kevin trusted me in putting this in the Tesla. I think you'll really like it. We're running a black Via Air 444 compressor, black chrome on the leader, really cool compressor. And we're using a 3-gallon seamless aluminum tank. These tanks look so pretty, very, very clean looking setup. Not a lot of ports, so you don't have to worry about a lot of excess plugs that you have to make sure you're not leaking out of. This is a great tank. We've got some mounts as well for the tank here. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to mount everything in the front. So we're going up front with this. The boys at Bag Riders have a Tesla Model 3 that they've bagged as well. And they kind of experimented. They did 2 management systems in their Model 3. They did management up front that ran the front setup. And then they did management in the back that ran the rear suspension. So I think what we're going to do, Kevin doesn't utilize any of this space. So I've got some MDF here. We're going to make a base and yeah, mount all the management to that and just put it in here. All right, so we got all the front plastic out, and basically what we're starting with is wiring. I didn't do due diligence on the Tesla before Kevin showed up. We were in Puerto Rico last weekend and working on tons of jobs here. And I should have done a little bit more homework about the Tesla. Once I got underneath the car with the jack, I realized there's only 4 jack points on the whole car, unless you put it underneath like a control arm or something like that. But to get it up on jack stands, because my bend pack lift isn't installed yet, we ordered some of the puck locators because the jack points are aluminum and the car is pretty heavy, we don't want to bend or dent any of the jack points, which I've seen online can happen pretty easily. So as we speak, we're waiting on the jack point like pucks to arrive today. I'm not sure when that's going to be because we're waiting on USPS. So what we're doing in the meantime to gain ground is wiring, because we can get that sorted out before we get the car up in the air and we start actually pulling suspension components. So all of this is really cool, but really frightening for someone who's never seen any of this stuff in cars before. But we found a great spot to go through the firewall. There's like a rubber grommet that's unused that we can run the controller harness and the ignition power harness through the firewall into the cabin of the car, which is where those two wires have to go. Being a frunk, where the air management is going to be and where the accessory battery is makes this super easy. We don't have to pull a bunch of interior out. It's all right here. Air lines are going to go underneath the car. So this should be super easy wiring wise. All right, so these are the only two wires that have to go through the firewall. In the Tesla, since the battery, the accessory battery is up front and all the management's up front, the ignition wire, the ignition power wire, and the controller wire are the only two that have to go into the cab of the car. So that's great. Everything else can stay inside the frunk, and the only thing that's going to get routed out to the back of the car are the two air lines for the back. Here, let me see that real quick. Up in here, this right here is the grommet that we're ultimately going to come through. You can't really get a good shot on the camera from the engine bay side, but that is where we're going to be coming out of. And the floor mat actually covers all of this up here. And I took out an access panel up here that had like a cabin fan and a dome light or a cabin light. So floor mat will cover that. We'll come in through here and go that way behind the carpet probably and work our way through the center console underneath the cell phone chargers and run to the cubby hole here in the middle. As you can see, we've already got the trim off here. Got the big end of the controller cable through the grommet in the firewall. Turns out there's two different pieces of rubber. There's one on the inside of the firewall, one on the outside. So I drilled from the inside out and it pushed this out. So I had to drill this outside of the car. So what I did was I just drilled a 3/8 hole in the middle and then cut a little slit off to the side in order to fit the fat part of the controller USB receiver end of the cable through. So on this side, you don't really see the slit, you just see the hole large enough for the controller cable and the ignition wire. Like, I don't know how, we had to order these pucks which fit up into the actual jack point holes of the Tesla frame, and then this is like a rubber composition and allows it to kind of squeeze when you lift the car so it doesn't bend the aluminum like frame rails that the jack point hole is in. So now that we've got these, we're in the process of getting it up onto jack stands since the lift isn't installed. As always, guys, I've left links in the video's description below to download the Wheel Price app for both iOS and Android devices. Wheel Price is a free wheel classifieds app, but also a growing online community of automotive enthusiasts where you can buy and sell your wheels. All right, guys, so it's day number 2. Got the Tesla up on jack stands. Which is a little bit more involved than a normal car because there's no body flex. It's very rigid. So getting it set evenly on all 4 jack stands safely was a little tedious. But it's up in the air. Got the wheels off last night. We worked on management. I cut out the MDF piece that the management will mount to. We got our holes drilled, and then Kevin wrapped it in his black pleather. We've got most of our supplies. I think we're ready to start dismantling mechanicals. So what I'm going to do first thing this morning is start loosening everything up and getting a look at how everything comes apart in a performance Tesla Model 3. So I've seen some guys bag these cars, and as you can see up in here, there's an aluminum, like almost subframe that the strut assembly mounts to. And the upper control arm also mounts to it. You can see the ears that hang down. And I've seen people pull that whole assembly, separate the upper ball joint here, and pull everything out. But it looks like if you have a narrow 13 millimeter, because these holes are super small, a narrow 13 will fit in there and get those out. So I've got a narrow 13 socket that'll fit in those holes. So I'm hoping I don't have to drop this whole like aluminum like subframe for the control arm mount and the strut assembly and all that. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to unhook the ABS line here. I'll probably get the sway bar end link unhooked, unbolted, and drop down. Then I'll probably separate this upper ball joint so I can pull the whole knuckle and control arm spindle away. And then down here, there's a big bolt here because the strut assembly turns into like a fork and straddles the axle and then mounts to the lower control arm. All right, that's the main bolt. All right, so I think if we hold this control arm up high enough, might be able to get it. There is a Tesla Model 3 front strut assembly. All right, so the first front strut assembly is out. Relatively easy. Not bad at all. New cars themselves are kind of a joy to work on compared to the old junk I work on. All right, so for the rear, the stud of the rear shock doesn't actually go up into the trunk of the car. It hides up in this aluminum like case basically. There's two 15 millimeter bolts here, and that whole thing will drop down. And then there's a rubber grommet on top, and I'll show you when I get that out, that the stud of the shock hides up in. So you just gotta kind of switch that over once it's out. Single bolt down on the bottom, and a single bolt on the control arm. So you got your lower shock bolt and then your control arm to spindle bolt. And I've already got my jack underneath. It's got some pressure on the lower control arm. This is coming out now. Then I'll take the spindle out, pull the spindle out of the way, lower the jack down, and pry the spring out. Pull this rear bolt out. Got a rubber mount here on top. Take this off, and the stud to the shock is hiding up in there. The next ones we're going to put in have dampening control, and the dampening control is actually underneath this, so you can actually get in there and adjust it without having to get to the top. So you can actually adjust the dampening without having to take it out from the actual car. All right, so we got all the stock suspension out, at least the stock suspension that we need to get out. Rear shocks and springs, those are out of the rear, fronts are all out. That's just one piece. That was super easy. Just the 3 nuts on the top, sway bar end link, rear bolt, undid ABS and brake hose guides, and a few other things to get stuff out of the way. Ball joint, upper ball joint, which isn't tapered. That's great. Upper ball joint not being tapered is awesome. That's just straight with a pinch bolt. So you take that pinch bolt out and the thing slides right out. Gonna end the video there. Kevin worked on the MDF piece that all the management's gonna get mounted to. Next episode will be getting all that finalized, cutting an access hole in the back of the plastic tub. We're gonna run air lines, so we gotta drop down some of the plastic paneling underneath the car to figure out where the best place to run the rear air lines are gonna be, and install the super low bag riders strut assemblies. Hopefully you'll see it airing down and touching the ground. So we'll see. I don't know if they air all the way out. The super low kit might let it go all the way down, but it's got 20s, and I don't know what the range of motion is on control arms and the sway bar and all that stuff. I don't know if the front axles hit the frame, if people notch those or anything like that, but hopefully touch the ground, but be much lower than it is factory. We're getting on that next, so we'll see you guys in the next episode.